Yo, what's going on, everyone? It's Bill here for Classic Rock and Metal Review. Time for a commercial CD album update. Try to do this every so often. One of the regular episodes that I know I drag my friggin' feet anymore, getting shit up. But what can I say? Life. So, I'm going to give you the lowdown on 47 new releases. Some of them just came out in the last week or so. About 40 of them are yet to come, going through November actually. So, kind of cool. This is not deluxe editions. I do a separate episode for those. However, a couple of these basically are deluxe editions, although there's possibly standalones for some of these. You know what I mean. Nowadays, you kind of get your choice right out of the gate. So a couple of these you may consider deluxe. We'll just talk about them anyway. Also, going to show you the dozen or so things I've gotten in the last month or so since the last time we did one of these commercial CD updates. Then 3 reviews at the end. We're going to talk about, actually 2 of them are fairly recent releases actually. So we'll start out with Richard Wright's Wet Dream. Pink Floyd keyboardist, his debut solo album from 1978. And actually I have this on vinyl. I got that used a while back. I also have the other CD. I think it's One Way Records. So I'll give you a comparison to those because this is a Steven Wilson remix from about a month ago. August of this year, I believe that came out. Nice one there. We'll talk about Stills Manassas, their second album. I picked it up on vinyl a few months ago, and then I got it on CD a month ago too. This is their second and final album from 1973. And we'll talk about this guy. Then we'll get to, this one's new to me, and actually sort of a new release because I guess it was a repressing. Who even knows? It came up as a new release in some circles, so I think it was just a back-in print kind of reissued thing. No new material, but Tank's debut from 1982, Filth Hounds of Hades. I never heard these guys before until buying this album, so this will be third and final review. Ass-kicking, dirty rock and roll, punk metal, whatever you want to call these guys. Really enjoyed that. We'll do a little explore with that one. And trying to think what else to tell you. I think that's pretty much, how could I friggin' forget? Staring me right in the face, Gene Wilder. This week we're drinking Chamonix Creek, one of my favorite beers. They were local to me. I moved a little while back. They're still close enough where distributors carry them, so luckily for me. This was actually the only thing they had by them this week. It must be a new release. Young Pumpkinstein, take off that awesome movie, as you know. You got a Marzen-style lager. It doesn't necessarily say pumpkin in the flavoring here. Allspice, candied ginger, cinnamon, nutmeg. So a seasonal thing. Let's find out how pumpkin it is. You know, I picked up a 4-pack. Put it down. Figured, let me just buy one and see what's up. I love their beer in general, but not everything they make is awesome. So let's go for the pour, guys. You know how I suck at that. I used to do that off camera, but I figured it's kind of like entertainment at this point. For you and for me. And wow, it's darker than I thought. I guess I shouldn't have expected it to be lighter with those ingredients. And man, I'm getting better at the pour. You got to admit. Let's give, well, I guess I'll give it a minute and then we'll give this a taste. But that's it. I'm setting the timer for 1 minute. All right, man. Why don't we start out with a few of the new releases that have come out in the last week or so. Going back to September 29th, actually, for most of these. KK's Priest, second album, The Sinner Rides Again. I heard a little bit of it. Sounds pretty good. I need to hear the whole thing, but right along the lines of the debut from what I can tell. Which I don't have that either. I need to really pick up at least that to start with. Ann Wilson of Heart and Trip Sitter, Another Door, if you're a fan of Heart, her sort of side project. Steven Wilson, The Harmony Codex, one of his actual albums as opposed to all the other things he produces and remixes. And I have a friend of mine who's really into him. I can't say I am, but I'm open to it at some point. He really says he's great live, so his guitar playing and such. Wishbone Ash, sort of a compilation, I guess. Live dates, live 1973 to 2023. sort of 50 years of live Wishbone Ash on this one. I think it's roughly half 70s, half newer. Don't quote me on that. The Orb featuring David Gilmour. This is sort of a remix of Metallic Spheres in Color. I think that's a 2011 album they did together, and they sort of got a total makeover with this 2023 version. A day later, George Lynch of Dokken, Orchestral Mayhem. Man, this guy is just cranking out releases. It's great. He must have like a half dozen just this year alone. Orchestral Mayhem, the name of that guy. And coming soon, Roger Waters, Dark Side of the Moon Redux. Girl School, Hit and Run Revisited. So basically a re-release of their 2011 re-recording of their 1981 album Hit and Run. So I'm in. How many times can you keep... some people are pretty excited about this. So this sounds like the one they have from Girl School, by the way. I don't know anything from them. If anyone knows anything about what's worth having from them, I mean, it sounds like this one. Let me know. Speaking of some re-releases, Saxon, 3 of their older releases from the 90s and 2000s. Metalhead, Dogs of War, and Lionheart, all seeing re-releases. They've been hard to get, I guess, out of print. That comes in handy for us. I don't have any of those. I used to have a compilation of all their 90s up till 2011 or something. I don't know what happened to that double CD. Wish I still had that around. All right, this one looks like Gray Market. UFO, Hot and Ready in Texas, 1979. The UFO live stuff just keeps on coming. Gray Market, if you're Disc Japan, you get taken down. If you're Amazon, you get away with it. That's how the world is. Trevor Rabin, Rio, Yes guitarist, former Yes guitarist, solo album. Here's kind of a cool one just in time for the season. John Carpenter, Anthology 2, movie themes, 1976 to 88. Obviously, there's been another version of this out there. So here's your Anthology 2. Uriah Heep, Chaos and Color. It's their 25th album. This was already released in Europe a few weeks, maybe a month ago. So it's been out there, but new to the US, October 6th. All those last batch were from. All right, so before we get to anything else musically, let's get to something important. Drinking this beer. Damn good. It doesn't taste really strong. The flavoring's not even strong. It's kind of like delicately placed seasonal flavorings. All the allspice and stuff you see in a lot of these seasonal beers. And you know what? The name is Young Pumpkinstein. Man, if there's pumpkin in there, it's well hidden. That's a good one, So many of those pumpkin things around this time of year. Something seasonal without all that pumpkin. And it's only 5.2%. So that means I can have 2 during this episode. All right, back to the new releases, guys. These will be October 13th. Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, 50th anniversary edition, James Guthrie remaster. This is a standalone, just the regular album, part of that huge box set that came out earlier this year. Gary Moore, Back to the Blues, a re-release. 3 bonus tracks are on that guy. UFO, another Gray Market, I'm sure. Lights Out in Babenhausen, 1993. Sounds like Germany to me. I think, was that the reunion with Schenker? I believe so. Black Sabbath, this is a cool one. Reunion triple LP. All 16 songs that were on the reunion album, plus 2 Danny Saber remixes, Psycho Man, Selling My Soul. So that's kind of cool. $60-some. I don't know if I'm a big enough fan of vinyl to do this one, but it is a cool one, got to admit. Here's one of the 3 picks. If I had to pick 3 of these albums, I'll just let you know what they are. Pretty irrelevant to you, but Whitesnake's Purple album, sort of a deluxe edition. I'm not even sure if there's a standalone of just the remix of the album, but there is a special gold edition coming out, 2 CDs and a Blu-ray. Kind of cool. sort of a refresh of that album. I think it's 2018. And bonus tracks, a whole CD full of live stuff. David Coverdale's first demo that got him into Purple, and the Blu-ray, live stuff, videos, etc. So that looks like a cool one because I never got the Purple album in the first place. That's why that's kind of appealing to me. Moving ahead to October 20th, Night Ranger, 40 Years and a Night, they're calling this one. CD, DVD, with orchestra. Another George Lynch related release on the 20th. Lynch Mob, Babylon. Good to see Lynch Mob back. Vince Guaraldi with a Charlie Brown Thanksgiving 50th Anniversary Edition. Yeah, guys, it's been 50 years since that first got on TV. So this is remastered vinyl and CD out there. Here you go. Here's another pick. It just has to be, right, when you only do an album every 18 years. The Rolling Stones, Hackney Diamonds. Multiple formats out there for you with this one. Haven't heard a second of this. I'm sure there's singles out there. Got to check this one out. Heavy Load. Someone turned me on to one of you guys mentioned them earlier this year. I still haven't gotten around to buying anything. Have listened to them a little bit on YouTube. Kind of throwback metal, man. Good wreck. I might check this one out, but I actually got to get some of their older stuff first. I didn't realize they've been around since the 70s. This one's called Riders of the Ancient Storm. And now this was actually slated for October 20th. I think it got pushed back to the 27th, possibly. Swedish metal band. Heavy Load. They look cool. Humble Pie, California 81 live. Looks like a gray market release from them. And same for UFO, Making Moves in Chicago, 1981. Looks cool though. How can you resist? Joe Strummer and the Mescaleros, Street Core. This is again October 20th. Staying with October 20th, Blues Traveler, Traveler's Soul. And Dave Edmunds live at the Capitol Theater from May 15th, 1982. Moving on to October 27th, A Very Metal Christmas 2, various artists on that one, obviously. Dokken, Heaven Comes Down, some new Dokken for everyone. Robin Trower, Joyful Sky, featuring vocalist Sari Shore. She's traditionally an R&B vocalist, so sort of a mashup of Trower's bluesy side and Sari Shore on vocals. Now here's another third and final pick of the month for me. Venom, Alive in 85, Hammersmith Odeon concert. This is actually a CD-DVD package, so if you want to look at it as deluxe, what have you. Got this, I had this on VHS and I transferred it to a DVD-R myself. I never owned the CD. I'm more interested in the video, but I'll take this one. When this comes out, go for this one. Pure Prairie League, If the Shoe Fits. This is a 76 album by them, remastered, sort of re-release. Motley Crue, another re-release. Shout at the Devil, replica, CD, replica of the album. And that's the 27th. Moving into November 3rd, we get a posthumous release from Jimmy Buffett, Equal Strain on All Parts, rest in peace Jimmy Buffett, final album. Jackson 5, sort of a retro release, re-release I guess you'd say. Joyful Jukebox Music. It's a reissue of their 1976 album that was, I think, 10 songs of previously unreleased material. Seeing the light of day, or a re-release I should say. Chicago, Greatest Christmas Hits. If you're looking ahead, I thought they only had one Christmas album in the first place, so why you would need their Greatest Christmas Hits, I don't know. Christine McVie, a couple of releases. In the Meantime, her 2004 album gets a re-release, as does her 1984 self-titled second album. Both come in November 3rd. Also November 3rd, Van Morrison, new album. Accentuate Positive is the name of it, and it's sort of early rock era cover songs. And he'd probably sound good doing them. Moving forward to November 10th, Foghat, a new album, Sonic Mojo. 6 brand new songs, 6 cover songs. Missing Persons, here's a kind of a cool one. Hollywood Lie, first new album in a decade. Also November 10th, Jimi Hendrix Experience, live at the Hollywood Bowl, August 18th, 1967. November 17th, Kenny Wayne Shepherd, Dirt on My Diamonds, Volume 1. It's a studio album. Todd Rundgren also on November 17th. This one's live in New York, 78. Mark Farner. The Rundgren and Farner might be great releases. Haven't looked that far into them. Just got that feeling. Rock and Roll Soul Live, 1989. It's 9 Grand Funk Railroad songs as performed by Mark Farner's solo band at the Woodstock 20th anniversary concert. And finally, November 21st, Joe Bonamassa, Blues Deluxe Volume 2. Guys, remember, that's only the regular commercial releases. I do another episode of all deluxe editions, another episode all video, bootleg and commercial. Finally, another episode that's all bootleg CDs. So stay tuned for those. Next up, actually, the next episode you'll be seeing will be Love You Long Time. And this one, not a metal band. This one's actually Marshall Tucker Band that I had back in the 80s. Gone by the wayside 20-some years ago. So I got this one back to do a Love You Long Time. That'll be our next episode. But let's move on to, let's do the monthly haul first. Only a dozen things to show you. Just regular CDs that I got in the last month or two. Finally picked up Neil Young's Zuma. Now this is, I'll tell you, man, this is definitely an original CD, as you can tell. A little dumpster dive on eBay for a half dozen of these things. I mean, there's enough nicotine on this case where I could probably scrape it off and smoke a cigarette. One of those jobs. Anyway, I never actually owned this, man. I had this taped off my cousin. He had a lot of Neil on CD. Throw it on the old Maxell XL2S, same difference. Finally got the real deal. It's my first Peter Gabriel album. I think it's his third album, or Melt as people call it. And a couple of great songs, man. I've already listened to this twice. Still trying to absorb it a little bit, you know. Definitely new wave and definitely ahead of its time, you know. And I think his best song ever, and I Don't Remember, is on there. I'm finally moving past Sacred Heart with Dio. The only albums I've had from him so far, the first 3 solo albums. Finally, some Dream Evil for my ass. Let's see what's going on. I've seen some of the videos from a couple of these songs. You know, decent. No complaints there. Let's see what's up with Dream Evil. Here's something I had on cassette back in the day. So Far, Greatest Hits collection, basically from CSNY. And of course you got Ohio on here as sort of the unique So Far only song. So first time on disc for me. You know, this is a basic. Man, I avoided Greatest Hits albums like plague for the last 30 years. Only in the last couple of years have I been starting to collect them again. They do come in handy certain times, you know. And when you lay off them for 3 decades, you know, not the bullshit that you remember, kind of don't mind them. Especially when you don't listen to the radio and nothing's getting beat in your head anymore. Aerosmith, the 170s album that I still didn't have was Draw the Line. So here it is. And you got to love these old CBS CDs, man. They have this sort of picture frame deal. I just love old stuff, even if it's totally irrelevant to most people. You know, one of these are how the CDs generally looked when they first came out in the 80s. Collector's Choice series. You know, not my favorite album from them, but, you know, I just need it again. And here's one that, man, I haven't heard. This will be, I never really loved it in the first place, but I haven't heard this one since when it came out, actually. Rockin' a Hard Place. I was really looking forward to hearing this, since the only thing I really remembered from it was Lightning Strikes. And I've checked this out a couple times too. I think it's pretty good. It's, you know, way 70s, more 70s sounding than I kind of expected and remembered. So good. Now here, guys, you know I'm not afraid to pick apart box sets. David Bowie Sound and Vision disc 1 on there is awesome. Found that as a standalone on eBay. So I did the same thing. I've been eyeing these up for literally a year or two, waiting to find just these 3 without having to buy the whole box set. But Tom Petty's Playback, 1993 box set. I don't need the first 3 CDs with basically greatest hits up until that point. But CDs 4, 5, and 6, all full of rarities, one-offs, B-sides, live songs, unreleased, right in my wheelhouse. So CD 4, CD 5 is kind of cool too. I haven't heard this one yet. I played 4 kind of dig for. And this was the one I was really after. I think CD6 has some great stuff on there. And I was able to get these for, I think, around 15 or 20 bucks for the 3 of them. I did not want to spend $30 on the whole box set. I don't need it, and I don't even want it, honestly. So I got to tell you, I really didn't remember liking 4 or 5 a whole lot, but someone was selling all 3. So, you know, for basically the same price as just getting CD6, I kind of really liked 4. I don't know why I kind of wrote it off so much. You know, it's not like your classic petty that, you know, you're going to throw on. We're in the mood to hear a typical album. They're loose ends, you know, one-off little performances. Some of these songs are a minute or 2 long, kind of, you know. I don't know. If you're just hanging out and not too worried about what's on your player, it kind of works, you know. Cover songs, Psychotic Reaction, things like that. Kind of cool. But I really wanted CD6. I haven't listened to it yet. I'm looking forward to that. And last but not least, I showed you the Marshall Tucker CD. Picked up this on vinyl, and it's sealed. It does have a little break in the seal right around here. But Win, Lose, or Draw by the Allman Brothers Band. I think I paid $5 for this. How do you not? Pretty clean overall. I'm not too concerned about that tear in there. You know, this isn't going into a museum. It's just something every now and then I grab a sealed vinyl. I have about 15 of them. And, you know, for $5, why the hell not? With shipping and all, it was under 10. I love the hype sticker version there because, you know, I know they repressed the CD later and they put this on the front cover of the CD. But I have the older CD that still has basically what you would see without that hype. So the hype's really cool to me. Man, I love this album, as you all know. All right, guys, time to get into some CD reviews. Let's start with Pink Floyd's Richard Wright, his debut CD. There's the vinyl in the back there. Wet Dream, it's a Steven Wilson remix, 2023. Richard Wright, Wet Dream, his 1978 debut solo album, remixed by Steven Wilson, released this past August on Richard Wright's, what would have been his 80th birthday. Rest in peace, Richard Wright. Only keyboardist Floyd ever had. Founding member, as far as I remember, also goes back to the beginning with Floyd. So, get a little variation on the cover versus the original CD or album. The album back in there. And this is a one-way record CD that basically just mimicked the vinyl. So little variation. And we'll talk a little bit about the packaging here at the end, you know. I think it's kind of cool what they did. Sort of honored the original cover art and inner art and all, but sort of it's totally different too, and yet it's all from the same photo session, so that's kind of cool. This is an album that I got maybe about 8 years ago on vinyl. Picked it up used because it was like $8. And I have to tell you, I probably played it once. And I kind of liked it, and maybe played it a second time, and I kind of didn't listen to it again until I got the CD about 2-3 years ago. One-way records version, like I already mentioned. And, you know, I kind of remember liking this. Maybe gave it 2 listens, 3 listens. Mostly because it gave me Floyd vibes, you know. Not so much the overall songs themselves, but, and you know, it was kind of, you would kind of hear pieces of old Floyd style in parts of the songs. Not even the whole songs themselves, just here and there. But that alone, I thought, was enough to make me consider this probably the 3rd best Floyd solo album. I like On an Island by Gilmour a lot. I also think Amused to Death by Waters is awesome. I kind of put this basically 3rd, and that's kind of saying something. You know, those guys have done some decent solo albums besides the 2 I just mentioned. So at the end of this, I'll compare the vinyl to the one-way record CD. And, you know, but mostly we're going to concentrate on the album itself. And even though it's not new to me, man, I've given this thing a bunch of listens the last month. I can really speak to it at this point. And we'll also compare the remix version to the original album, original CD, because Steven Wilson did take a little bit of, you know, artistic freedom here, artistic license, and mix it up a little bit. A couple songs are a little shorter, one or two might be a little longer, that sort of thing. And of course, as with any remix, you get a little variation in the sound. So going in, I got to tell you, I'm a real fan of Richard Wright, his contributions to Floyd. I don't think he had enough, honestly. Now, I'm not saying that what he had to offer was necessarily better than what Roger and Dave were contributing, but songs like Remember a Day, Stay from Obscured by Clouds, Wearing the Inside Out, which was on Division Bell. I love those songs, you know. I mean, I have to tell you, I mean, I know he's got a couple more older ones that he sang too. Man, you know, I know he's mainly the keyboardist. You know, his voice, very sort of melancholy, just sort of there. You're never going to hear him try to scream or yell. It's just sort of almost like kind of speaks the lyrics in a way. I mean, he is a singer, but he's, like I said, a very melancholy, sort of laid-back style. I just think that style really fits his piano playing. His piano playing can be kind of deliberate at times too, for the most part, actually. Now, despite, like I said, a lot of, let's say, 72 to 79 sounding Floyd moments that are on this album, as I mentioned, most of these songs do not sound very Floyd-like. A couple of them do. Others sound like, sort of like I was saying, the germ to what could have been expanded on by the other guys in Floyd and made into Floyd songs. But we don't go there with Richard Wright solo. Now, we'll go down all the songs in a second. How does this 2023 remix sound? I'm a fan of Steven Wilson. I know people don't, not everyone loves him. I think he does a really good job with, you know, his reproduction. Great sounding, better sounding than the older CD. Nice, rich, full sound. The bass sounds more like a bass would sound live. The original was good. Maybe a little dry, a little flat, but it was a pretty good sounding CD originally. So, you know, the technology at this point is basically letting everyone improve the sound on things, especially Steven Wilson. I'm just talking the overall sound quality. So that's an improvement. Now, like I said, Steven Wilson does switch around some of these songs. A little longer, a little shorter, but the hearts of them are still there. I don't feel like he pulled a Technical Ecstasy job where he completely removed certain instruments or things like that. There might be a song or two where some background percussion things, levels are higher. Pretty minimal overall tweaking. All right, so I liked it going in. Enough to say it was one of the best Floyd solo albums ever. I got to tell you guys, after about, well, you'll probably be able to tell, after about 4 or 5 listens, I love it. I think it's a great album, and I didn't realize how great it is, honestly. Really just absorbing the songs themselves at this point. And that whole, oh, that sounds like something that could have been on Obscured by Clouds. Oh, that sounds like something from The Wall. That sounds like something from the end of Sheep. All those little things are just fading into the background for me at this point. And now I'm really just loving the songs themselves. Those little Floyd-like influences and things. I'm really noticing them a little less, actually. I still pick them up. You know, I'm a Floyd head. They were my favorite band from '87. Probably in the early 2000s is when I finally admitted I wasn't listening to Floyd as much as I was Sabbath. But you can imagine 10 or 15 years of heavy Floyd listening. You know, I pick up all that stuff still. However, like I said, the details, Floyd-like little snippets here and there, really starting to fade a little bit into the background, songs coming to the fore. Favorite songs on this one? Guys, I don't know if I'm ever going to say this again about an album or ever have. All of them. I really like all 10 of these songs. I mean, there might be one I can throw out of the 10 as not as good as the others. But man, it's just crazy. It's crazy how good this album is. Let's drink to this album. And I'm telling you, you got to check this one out, especially if you're a Floyd fan. The one thing I'll say is if you're not a big Richard Wright fan, of his voice anyway, might not love it as much as me. let's start going down the tunes. We start out with Mediterranean Sea. Now, 6 of these songs are instrumental, so you only have 4 songs where Richard sings anyway. That's how good this damn album is. You don't even need vocals. Mediterranean Sea, very sort of Wish You Were Here era style, more of like Shine On You Crazy Diamond, I guess you'd say. Lots of lyrics and even song titles here relating to 2 subjects: being around the water and breakups of relationships. So somehow they kind of meld, you know. I don't even know why. That just sounds, I don't know. Maybe this is where Rick used to go for, obviously, for leisure. But maybe this is also where he went to sort of sort these things out in his head. I don't even know. Just conjecture here based on all the imagery you get with the album itself. And I'll show you what I mean by with the booklet that you get in here. Pretty cool. I really like the booklet in here. We'll get to that. Mediterranean Sea is a nice start. Also, by the way, you got Snowy White on guitar. Of course, we go on the Thin Lizzy fame pretty soon. Mel Collins on saxophone. Pretty sure he appeared with Floyd. I know the name. Sorry, I'm not placing him. Larry Steele on bass. Reg Isidore on drums. That's your 5-piece band. And speaking of 5, this album was recorded in 5 weeks, early '78. However, I don't think it was released until like 6 months later. Stupid trivia. All right, the next song, Against All Odds. Nice little sort of harpsichord thing going on behind the piano vocal. Acoustic solo is kind of nice. It's a ballad, you know. Not going to say it's not. It kind of leaves you wanting more. It kind of ends before you want it to end, you know. And sometimes that's not a bad thing. That's the right way to go. Very simple song, you know. That's one of the things here. As much as this album has all your standard rock instruments, nice keyboard action going on, synthesizer stuff, a couple little percussion things, but overall these songs are pretty straightforward. You know, he's not trying to do too much. Cat Cruise, they released that as a single this year, I think digitally anyway. Another instrumental, another sort of Wish You Were Here era feeling thing. Does have an Animal style sound to the synthesizer going on. There's something in there that sounds very Animals for a couple of seconds. Not the whole way through, but there's a section. It's kind of cool. Summer Elegy, you get a whiff of the sort of beginning to Great Gig in the Sky here. Just in the beginning, you know, that sort of guitar that slides. It's kind of cool. Double track vocals here by Rick sound awesome. He does a few lines with just single vocal, then double tracks the vocals. Really good snowy solo here on Summer Elegy. Waves, next up, another instrumental. This one's kind of mysterious, creepy sounding kind of thing. This one's a minute longer. I don't necessarily notice that it's longer. It's just a good song again. Another great one, so the more the merrier. Holiday. This one has, this first song on side 2, it really kind of, the only thing about this song that I don't like is where it's at in the album. It's a really sort of, got these sort of hopeful, finale sort of sound and feel, and the vocals, the lyrics rather. It definitely sounds like this should have been the last song on the album, you know. Sail Away, just kind of has that vibe to it, and yet here it is in the middle of the album. Real cool, unique synthesizer solo on this one is cool. Has this sort of big finish kind of thing. I just think it's a little misplaced, but it's another good one. Mad Yanis Dance, another instrumental. This one doesn't really sound anything like Floyd at all. Kind of more like early to mid-era Genesis, mid-70s Genesis, maybe more like early Genesis. This plotting, you know, keyboard synthesizer rhythm thing going on. I think lyrics would actually ruin this song. Even though it's pretty simple, but it's just such a sort of sinister sound to it, you know. This just has like Peter Gabriel written all over it, speaking of Peter Gabriel. And another really cool one. What's it? Drop In From the Top, 3.5 minute song, another instrumental. This one's got a sort of swinging, almost jazz feel going on to it. It's yet somehow still Floydian, true to the rest of the stuff on this album. Another cool one. Pink's song. I think this is the only song Rick had any help writing at all. His wife at the time, I think, wrote some of the lyrics to this. Probably my least favorite song on the album, though, actually. And yet, it's still decent, you know, pretty good. But the one, like I said, one song that's not fantastic. Finally, Funky Do. Funky Do. Maybe a play on words from Adam Hart Mother there. Kind of cool. This really cool synthesizer wash instrumental. Another great one. And really like that the album ends with this one. As much as it probably made more sense to end it with, I think it's Waves, or sorry, Holiday. Said I'd show you the packaging. Let's check that out. Here's the CD itself. Pretty cool. What I love about this packaging is it's just from the original photo shoot, inspired by the original photo shoot, nothing more, you know? Nothing to let you know this is 2023 at all, really. Just take a look inside the book, too. Nice, another shot of Rick there. That's kind of cool. And then what's really interesting about this book, there's not a word in it. Just a bunch of pictures from the photo session. Really cool. And hey, I'll just try to show you as much as I can. But nice sort of takes for, you know, alternate photos from the sessions. And I guess that's the original. Is that the original there? Yeah, original on the Your, right, is it? Turned around here. And there you go. So I thought that was really kind of classy, you know. I mean, you know, you open it up and you're like looking for something to read and there's nothing there, and kind of like that, you know. Kind of goes with the feel of this album. It's meant to be just heard and enjoyed and savored and not sort of picked apart, you know, although I just tried to do it. But overall, man, what a great album, you know. Like I said, completely written by Wright. What an impressive thing, recorded in 5 weeks. If you're not a fan of his voice, that might be the only sort of fact that he's not going to be this dynamic singer. Never was, never will, would have been, never was in the 60s, 70s, or even the 90s when he put a song on the last Floyd album with him on it. Hearing him solo without the constraints of Floyd, actually, I think is the core of what any solo album should be, and it holds true here. You know, if you're listening to this to hear another Floyd album, probably be disappointed. Listen to it for what it is. That's how solo albums should be listened to. And maybe I'll tell you, give it some multiple listens. These were probably my total, going back to my vinyl, my original CD a few years ago. I'm probably heard it 8 to 10 times at this point, and I'm still continuing to like it more every time I hear it. That really says something, man. I usually peak out around a 4th, 5th, 6th listen. To keep liking something more this many listens in is saying something. Pink Floyd, or Richard Wright's Wet Dream 2023 remix. It's also coming out on Blu-ray, which will have the original album, this remix, and I think a 5.1 surround sound remix. That looks like a good one to grab also. 9.5 out of 10 on Richard Wright's Wet Dream. Stills Manassas, Down the Road, their second and final album from 1973. I only picked this up on vinyl a few months ago and got the CD a few weeks later, actually. So hadn't heard the vinyl when I got the CD. So I kind of started out listening to this guy driving around for a while. Heard this 3 or 4 times at this point. Let's talk about Stills and Manassas, supergroup. I think they formed late 71. Had their double album debut April of 72. Critics and fans alike love that album. Great one. I'll tell you what, since I do have this on vinyl, we'll do a little comparison with the sound quality too, CD versus vinyl. But you got Stills, obviously, Chris Hillman from the Byrds, Dallas Taylor, who played with Stills and also CSNY, Calvin Fuzzy Samuels on bass, bassist for Manassas here, but also went on to play with America and some other people. Paul Harris, piano, who'd been around the block a few times with that whole California rock scene. Al Perkins with the Flying Burrito Brothers, I believe. Pedal Steel, who came along with Chris Hillman to to Manassas. And Joe Lala, percussionist who played with, you name it, in the 70s. Jackson Browne, Dan Fogelberg, Stills solo, Joe Walsh, David Crosby solo stuff. There's your super group. Everything going really solid with the recording of the first album and the subsequent tour. Then things kind of started to fall apart even before they got to recording this album. Lots of big events happening. You can imagine with a 7-piece band filled with musicians that were on demand to record other people's records. Kind of hard to keep things together. For one thing, Stills got married in between the 72 tour and then starting to record this album. Chris Hillman was being courted by the record company to form the J.D. Souther, Richie Fiore band, Hillman, Souther, Fiore band. And there was also producer change during the recording of this album. Songs were being rejected by Atlantic Records, so back to the drawing board kind of thing. A few different studios involved in recording this, I think 3. So you kind of have a chaotic situation. And the overall album reputation here is that it's just not as good as the first album. Songwriting just not as strong. And music, not really musically as interesting either. That's sort of the rep on this album. However, I always make my own determination. Listen to it, like I said, maybe actually more like 4, 5, 6 times at this point, because I did spin the vinyl after I had already heard this 3 or 4 times. So a minimum of probably 5 listens to this now. I was really prepared for that sort of letdown going in. But you know what? First listen to this, I really got excited. I think several of the first 3 or 4 songs are probably the best on here. And when I initially heard those, I was really excited and basically prepared to say this album was almost as good as the first one. However, subsequent listens, kind of brought it down a notch, maybe brought it down to earth. So let's go down the song list. Start out with Isn't It About Time? Great one. This is one of the ones, probably my favorite on the album. Stills, as opposed to the first album that really sort of bopped around musically, like stylistically, you got some Latin and you got some country and so forth. This song starts out with this sort of steady groove, you have bass, you have drums, you have this clapping for your beat. Great slide guitar hook at the chorus. Great song. This is one of the best songs for sure. Second song, Lies, another really good one. This is Chris Hillman singing on this one. Straight ahead sort of country rocker. Another steady beat, basic kind of song, but another pretty good, damn good one. Third song in, Pensamiento. It's a Stills number again, and it's sung in Spanish entirely. Great song. I mean, this is just a great song. It makes me want to learn Spanish, all right? Because I wish I could sing along with this. It's so damn good. Real Latin flavor to it, as you can imagine. The best cowbell hook I've ever heard in my life. There's a couple of parts in this song where all the music just comes to a stop for a second. Somehow Joe Lala gets in what sounds like 8 different licks on that cowbell in that 1 second. And let me tell you, it's some damn tasty stuff. Another excellent song. 3 songs in, I am loving this thing. Next song, really of note, the title track, Down the Road, 7th song in. Another steady, Stills, straight ahead sort of song, mid-tempo. Cool one. You have a sort of big harmony going on between Stills and some background female singers at the chorus. That sounds great. Another really strong song. The last song on here, Rollin' My Stone, is pretty cool. This one sort of has a classic CSN rocker style vibes to it. Another really good one. However, overall, guys, I have to admit, I have to agree with popular opinion on this. Songwriting, not as strong, not nearly as many interesting musical moments along the way as you had on the first album. Not even close, really. It still doesn't make it a bad album, It's still pretty good. A lot of times an album for me I'll only start to like it more and more as I listen to it more. This one just wasn't happening. I liked it first listen, and that's all I can say about it after 5 listens. Like it, don't love it. There are 2 great songs on here. I would say there's 3 really good songs on here also. Then we have about 5 songs that are just okay, good, passable, but not great. So overall, I'll probably give this like a 7.2 on a scale of 10. The CD versus the album, you do have some compression here. This thing is like almost twice as loud as the vinyl album. Not necessarily the worst thing in the world though, because it sounds good. The sound quality of it is good. You just only need to put your stereo, if you have a 100-watt stereo like me, on about 1.5. 2 would be blasting this thing. It is a little compressed. The vinyl sounds really good, but it does sound a little bassy and not necessarily any more clear. And the vinyl copy I got is excellent. Not a single pop or anything like that. So not a huge improvement on the sound. Maybe a tiny bit. You really do have to turn that thing up to get to hear it. I'm talking like 2.5 or 3 just to listen to it at a normal to somewhat loud volume. So not necessarily any sort of sacrifice going with the CD versus vinyl on this one. Vinyl's not that impressive, which I guess is more of a compliment of the CD. Good representation of the original recording. And a little compressed though, pretty loud. That's about it, guys. 7.2 on Stills Manassas Down the Road. It is the sort of back to earth album or sophomore slump. It would be their final album though. 7.2 out of 10 for this guy. Tank, Filth Hounds of Hades, their 1982 debut album. This was this one here, Cleopatra Records, and it's dated 2021, which was the original release. However, I don't know if that was out of print or what. It came up as a new release on Amazon months ago, so I pre-ordered it, and it actually just came a few weeks ago. So just been able to dive into this guy recently. Never heard it back in the day. Another new to me. I know it's an old release, but the new release is what caught my eye. Kind of interesting, though, I'll tell you. You get the CD, get the sort of flip open cover here. That's cool. Shot with the band holding Fast Eddie. And just that, there's no booklet in here whatsoever. This is this release that just came out this year, which looks like it's just a repress kind of thing from 2021. Do get some bonus tracks on there, so we'll talk about everything on here. First time I'm talking about Tank, so do a little band sort of summary for you. His original release was on Camouflage Records in the UK, Attic Records in Canada. I remember Attic from Anvil's albums. Tank goes back to 1980, formed by Algie Ward, bassist and vocalist of formerly of the band The Damned, punk band, who ended up finding Peter and Mark Brabs, guitar and drums respectively, to form Tank. You have this obvious sort of Motorhead influence going on. I'll try not to say the word Motorhead too much during this review, but obviously it's inevitable. The influence is there in style, somewhat for the most part, but definitely with the sound. Fast Eddie comes in as producer. There's another sort of contributing factor. Algie Ward, we just mentioned, of The Damned. You're also as the bassist, vocalist, frontman, another sort of analogy there to Motorhead. So many comparisons with Motorhead, but I think there's a couple other bands in there that I think sound like they're influencing these guys. Now, I don't think I remember even hearing of these guys. If I did, it was just a blurb in a sentence kind of thing in a magazine article. Might have had a friend or two who actually mentioned them, And probably when we were talking about Motorhead, someone would say, "Oh, did you ever hear Tank?" kind of thing. But guys, I'm a total Motorhead fan. I mean, I don't have any of their newer stuff, but I go up to Orgasmatron at least. I had all their albums. Still have all those albums. Got to get into some newer stuff. Point being, I love Motorhead. So, didn't really even know there was this big Motorhead comparison to Tank going in. I just knew people loved Tank's early stuff, and especially Filth Hounds of Hades, their first album. Let's go down some of these songs, guys. This was the first I was hearing this album, and it was only in the last couple weeks. So this is a really sort of new to me review kind of thing. Shell Shock is our starter, which basically goes right into Struck by Lightning. Raw, punk metal, Motorhead sounding. Similar sound and style vocals. Not as rough a voice as Lemmy, but the influence stylistically kind of there. Shell Shock, basically part 2 of it is Struck by Lightning. It's just song rolls right into it. Now this one I kind of felt like the phrasing of the lyrics kind of reminded me of Blue Oyster Cult, which, you know, hard to describe Blue Oyster Cult. Their phrasing can be all over the place and kind of quirky. That's how I kind of looked at Struck by Lightning, and another good strong track. I'd say Shell Shock's excellent. Struck by Lightning, really good. Run Like Hell, another really good one. This one a little more straightforward. Definitely another Motorhead sound and song. Influence of Motorhead. Sounds like Ace of Spades era Motorhead to me. You still had with Overkill and Bomber more of a bluesier sound a little bit. I thought Ace of Spades was the one where they kind of basically were more metal or punk metal kind of thing. That's what this album kind of reminds me of, the 1980 Motorhead, if you have to be specific. Blood, Guts, and Beer, another favorite. I think the song's excellent. Love this one. Kind of hear some Riot in this one with that sort of note pattern riff going on. The Riot was sort of great at doing. Real sort of air guitar fuel here. That note pattern riff at the chorus. Love that one. That's What Dreams Are Made Of. Another really good one. This one, the most melodic thing so far. I really like the echo on the solo. How it just sort of stays on that basic rhythm while that solo goes on for a while. Nice change of pace song, you know. Wouldn't say it's one of my favorites, but I really kind of like it, to be honest with you. Even though it's kind of on the melodic side. Turn Your Head Around, another solid one. This one's faster. Reminds me of the title track from Bomber, you know, sort of that pace, that kind of tone. Heavy Artillery, another one in the same league with Turn Your Head Around. Another faster one. Who Needs Love Songs? This is another really good one. After all, the Motorhead and Riot sort of sounding songs along the way. This one kind of has almost like a Zeppelin kind of intro to it. Maybe almost like early 70s prog rock blues kind of thing. I really kind of enjoyed those progressive rock sort of passages of this song better than the parts with lyrics. Really kind of almost reminds me a little bit of Edgar Winter's Frankenstein in a way. It's got that kind of style to it, you know. And it's cool. A little heavier, but not really much. This is more like a classic rock kind of sound than anything you've heard so far on this album. And really good one, kind of like it. Oddly enough, the title track, Filth Hounds of Hades, 9th song in, my least favorite, just a bit less interesting. It's good, just not as good as everything else so far to my ears. I think I've heard this twice, maybe 3 times. Stormtrooper, of course, this seems to be something everyone always talks about just because of the title. He fell in love with the Stormtrooper. You know, when I first heard this song, I think this was the only one I didn't like. I thought the corny title, the lyrics were too much, you know. Second listen, I just find this song like irresistibly good, man. It's like a hook to it. You know, just the way the guitar is going on in the background. Same riff going on. The rhythm behind it keeps changing or doing the descending thing. That, along with the chorus, just really catchy. I got to admit, I really like this one. Didn't like the first listen, thought it was kind of stupid. Second listen, I'm on board. This album is really good. Most of all, if not all of these songs, sort of run right into each other. So it's kind of like undeniably, you know, fast-paced, which goes along with the sound, which is also undeniably Motorhead sound, Motorhead influenced. Basically, if you like Motorhead's 78 to 82 output, and you wish that lineup had made another album, this would be the one to get. I don't think it could sound much closer to that era, especially the Ace of Spades album. Fast, rough, 1980, heavy and yet sort of clean, heavy in attitude. The guitars can be a little bluesy, not super heavy, just rough and dirty enough to be above rock and roll and below heavy metal, but sort of on the verge, you know. Very punk influenced, obviously with Algie Ward coming from punk band. This was sort of something that's right in his wheelhouse to do make a band like this, sound like this. You know, it's also a bit more metal than Motorhead ever was. So, I don't know. It's all right in that same ballpark, honestly. Riot, Tank, Motorhead, Rogue Mail, if anyone knows about those guys. Good stuff. This is a solid album. I'm going to go 8.8 on this thing. Really looking forward to another listen. I've only had 2 or 3 listens so far. I'm up for this bitch again. Great one from Tank. Filth Hounds of Hades. And you know what? The bonus songs on here are really good. You get some live versions of the songs that are on the album. I think there's a live song that's not on the album. Don't Walk Away. That's pretty good. Stepping on a Landmine, I think, was a B-side of a single. Just some great stuff. It's really the bonus tracks are just a continuation of the album. They're also really good, great stuff. Guys, that's going to do it for a commercial CD update. Gave you the lowdown on 47 upcoming releases or recent releases. Showed you the dozen or so things I picked up in the last month or so. And 3 reviews. Some pretty good stuff there. Coming up next will be Marshall Tucker Band, Love You Long Time. Let's find out. I used to really like this album. This was probably an 8 out of 10 back in the day. Drove around a lot with this thing, really enjoyed it. Searching for a Rainbow, their 1975 album. Let's see if it's as great as I remember. The target here, an 8 out of 10. Let's find out next episode. Guys, have a damn good day.